First and foremost, I give all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushua Ba'ashem Rakakodash. Yahweh to this world ignorantly calls God. Yahweh Shai to this world ignorantly calls Jesus. Ba'ashem means in the name, Rakah means spirit, and Kodash means holy. And that's all in the Paleo Hebrew. I also need to give double honors to the elder bishops and apostles of Great Millstone that taught me this truth. And I want to do a quick breakdown going into Baruch, the second chapter, from verse 28 all the way down to 35. Because this gives you pretty much a rundown over, the history of the Israelites and the future of what is to come for them and for this world, in total. So let's get straight to it. This is Baruch chapter 2 and verse 28. It says, "As thou spakest by thy servant Moses in the day when thou didst command him to write the law before the children of Israel, saying, If you will not hear my voice, surely this very great multitude shall be turned into a small number among the nations where I will scatter them." Right, and this is quoting Deuteronomy, the 28th chapter. Okay, going into when, Moses told the Israelites how, verse 15, "But it shall come to pass, if thou wilt not hearken unto the voice of Yahweh thy power, to observe to do all his commandments and his statutes which I command thee this day, that all these curses shall come upon thee and overtake thee." And that's exactly what happened. Okay, the Israelites got destroyed as a nation, and we are a cursed nation till this day. That's why you see so-called Latinos, Negroes, Native Americans, which are the Israelites as a collective, you see our people struggling, right? Our people are in the hoods or in the barrios, right, killing each other, gang banging, the woman being a whore, okay, us being at the bottom, monetarily. All these are curses, okay, and it's not a coincidence when people say, oh, the generational curses, you're going to fulfill the generational curse. And it's that cycle which, our people for so long have been, doing. So Deuteronomy chapter 28 and verse 64 says, "And Yahweh shall scatter thee among all people, from the one end of the earth even unto the other, and there thou shalt serve other gods, which neither thou nor thy fathers have known, even wood and stone." And that's exactly what happened, okay? Through captivity and captivity and captivity, and when 70 AD happened, when the temple got sacked by the Romans, we got scattered as a nation more and more. Right. Also, when our people were brought over here on slave ships, from Western Africa, and enslaved, they literally beat all the Hebrew that we had out of us. They made us be, so-called Christians, the plantation Christianity, which is nothing but a bastardized form, of the true gospel. It's not even nearly close to what, the true gospel is, but that's a different topic for a different time. The point is we got scattered and we were made to forget who we are. Okay, and that's the condition that our people, a majority of our people are in until this day. But with that came, the remembering. Deuteronomy chapter 29, if I remember correctly, 30. Right, Deuteronomy chapter 30 and verse 1, it says, "And it shall come to pass, when all these things are come upon thee, the blessing and the curse, which I have set before thee, and thou shalt call them to mind among all the nations whither Yahweh thy power have driven thee, and shall return unto the voice Yahweh thy power, and shall obey his voice according to all that I command thee this day, thou and thy children with all thine heart and with all thy soul, that then Yahweh thy power will turn thy captivity, and have compassion upon thee, and will return and gather thee from all the nations where Yahweh hath scattered thee." Right, and that's exactly what's going to happen soon. Right, it's the salvation. Okay, Yahweh Shai coming back with his angels to gather the elect from all four corners of the earth. Right, and that's said in Matthew the 24th chapter, if I remember correctly. Right, Matthew chapter 24 verse 31, "And he shall send his angels with the great sound of a trumpet, and they shall gather together his elect from the four winds, from one end of heaven to the other." Right, and the reason that's going to happen is because the Israelites were scattered. Okay, verse 4, "If any of thine be driven out unto the outmost parts of heaven, from thence will Yahweh thy power gather thee, and from thence will he fetch thee. And Yahweh thy power will bring thee into the land which thy fathers possessed, and thou shalt possess it, and he will do thee good and multiply thee above thy fathers. And Yahweh thy power will circumcise thine heart, and the heart of thy seed, to love Yahweh thy power with all thine heart and with all thy soul, that thou mayest live. Right, and that's going into partly how, we're going to be under the second covenant. How the law, statutes, and commandments are going to be in our inward parts. Right, it says that in Hebrews, the 8th chapter, how we're going to have immortal bodies with the commandments programmed inside of us. Right, the same way you breathe without thinking, it's going to be like that for keeping the commandments. Or you're not going to have to teach your brother to not eat pork and to not commit adultery. He's just going to know it from a little niglet. There's no longer going to be niglets or niggerettes, but you know the point. And it says, "And Yahweh thy power will put all these curses upon thine enemies and on them that hate thee, which persecuted thee." All right, that's happening right now, going into how all these nations are starting to suffer, are starting to feel the squeeze. And that's really going to be felt fully, in the kingdom. Okay, because as it says in Isaiah chapter 14, how we're going to be the ones on top and they're going to be the ones at the bottom. Isaiah 14 and verse 2, "And the people shall take them and bring them to their place, and the house of Israel shall possess them in the land of Yahweh for servants and handmaids, and they shall take them captives whose captives they were, and they shall rule over their oppressors." Right, so all the nations that have done us wrong, which is every single nation on earth, is going to get done wronged. Right, which that is true justice. Thus saith the Bible, thus saith the Lord. So, with that context, the background, let's now read it in Baruch chapter 2 and verse 28. Or verse 29, it says, "If you will not hear my voice, surely this very great multitude shall be turned into a small number among the nations where I will scatter them. For I knew that they would not hear me, because it is a stiff-necked people. But in the land of their captivities they shall remember themselves." That's exactly what's happening. Right, through all the earth, the Israelites are waking up to who they are. Right, the Lord is performing a mighty work, his prophecies. And, this is written in Ezekiel, the 37th chapter, when it talks about, the valley of the dry bones. Right, let's get that. Ezekiel chapter 37, and I'll get to the point. Verse 9, it says, "Then said he unto me, Prophesy unto the wind, prophesy, son of man, and say to the wind, Thus saith Yahweh, Come from the four winds, O breath, and breathe upon these plain, that they may live." Right, which that's going into prophesying. It says, "So I prophesied as he commanded me, and the breath came into them, and they lived and stood up upon their feet, an exceeding great army." And that's what you see right now. That's what you see this whole, thing on TikTok, on YouTube, about people talking about the Hebrew Israelites and what's going on. And it's only gaining more traction, right? Because the true gospel is going out and the people of the Lord are waking up, right? We're standing up on our feet in great boldness, as it says in Wisdom of Solomon, the 5th chapter. An exceeding great army. Then he said unto me, Son of man, these bones are the whole house of Israel. Behold, they say, our bones are dried and our hope is lost. We are cut off for our parts. Right, so it's talking about spiritually dead Israelites, right, the dry bones. So, Baruch chapter 2 and verse 30, "For I knew that they will not hear me, because it is a stiff-necked people, but in the land of their captivities they shall remember themselves." And we see that happening. It says, "And shall know that I am Yahweh their power, for I will give them in the hearts and ears to hear. And they shall praise me in the land of their captivity, and think upon my name." And that right there shows you how we have the true name of the Heavenly Father. Okay, the true name of the Heavenly Father is here, right? A couple scriptures to back that up. I think it's John 10. It talks about how he has manifested his name unto them that, right, John 17 and verse 6. It says, "I have manifested thy name unto the men which thou gavest me out of the world. Thine they were, and thou gavest them me, and they have kept thy word." Right, those men is going into the prophets, okay, starting with the 144,000. These are going to be the men, okay, that teach the whole nation of Israel. And that's what you see happening. So we got the true name of the Heavenly Father. It's not Yahweh, it's not Yah, it's not Jehovah, okay? It's, it's Yahweh, okay? So it says, "And return from their stiff neck and from their wicked deeds, for they shall remember the way of their fathers which sinned before the Lord." Right, so we're supposed to remember the old ways, okay, which is the commandments. And you have all these people out here, so-called Christians, saying how the old commandments are done away with and that those things were fulfilled. They're not even understanding what it means by those things were fulfilled, But they come out saying all these things, saying, yeah, you don't got to keep the commandments. Completely going against, what the Lord really has commanded. So we're supposed to keep the commandments to the best of our ability and have faith in the Messiah, right? First faith, right? And do the best you can when it comes to the law. It says, and I will bring them again into the land which I promised with an oath unto their fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and they shall be lords of it, and I will increase them, and they shall not be diminished. And I will make an everlasting covenant with them to be their God, and they shall be my people, and I will no more drive my people of Israel out of the land that I have given them. Right, which this hasn't happened yet. Okay, the Lord hasn't came back to gather the Israelites from the four corners of the earth and to take them back to the Holy Land. Right, this is a prophecy soon to be fulfilled. This is the hope, the good news, right? And this right here shows you, that those people over there in the Holy Land can't possibly be the true people, right? Because the Lord hasn't came back yet, which that's the criteria for the Israelites to go back, right? It also talks about when the Israelites go back, all nations, all 12 tribes are going to be there. And they say that, yeah, we don't know where the other 10 tribes are at. So that's one point thereof. So it also says that when the Israelites go back, there's going to be complete peace on the earth. We definitely don't see that. So many things, points to the fact that they're imposters. And they really fulfill, Ezekiel chapter 36 and verse 5. And we'll end it with that. Ezekiel chapter 36 and verse 5 says, therefore, thus saith Yahweh, surely in the fire of my jealousy have I spoken against the residue of the heathen, and against all Idumea, which have appointed my land into their possession, with the joy of all their hearts, with despiteful minds to cast it out for a prey. Right, and Idumea is the Greek way of saying Edom. Right, so these other nations and these Edomites have appointed the Holy Land, to themselves, to do whatever they want to do. But soon, it's all going to change. Okay, it says that in Luke how, the land is trodden down. Luke 21 and 24, and they shall fall by the edge of the sword, and shall be led away captive into all nations, and Jerusalem shall be trodden down of the Gentiles until the times of the Gentiles be fulfilled. Right, so how the Holy Land was going to be inhabited by other nations until their time is done. And soon, their time will be done. So I'll leave it there. Hopefully this is edifying. With that, I give all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Ba'ashim Yahushua, Ba'ashim Kakudash, and double honors to the elder bishops and apostles of great millstone at time of this truth. Shalom to your elect. Shalom.